So like totally not to flex or anything, but I got myself my first library card last week. So, you know, adulting and all that jazz. Hey guys, my name is Miranda and welcome to my universe, and today I'm filming a video that I have been dying to film, and I'm going to be talking about a series that I have been wanting to talk about for so long, and that is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. So I have the first three. The series does continue, but these are the only ones that are out, and then A Court of Frost and Starlight after this. I am currently reading right now as an ebook, so I'm not going to be talking about that one, but I will be talking about the first three books because oh, have I have feelings. So for the first part of this video, I am going to have no spoilers at all because the majority of what I want to say doesn't really spoil things, but then I will also have spoilers later on in this video too. So keep watching if you want to hear my deep, juicy feelings. Okay, I'm only gonna hold up this one because like it's super awkward holding up three books because these are kind of massive and my arms are gonna get tired. Okay. A Court of Thorns and Roses is a fantasy series that takes place in the magical land of Prythian, and Prythian is actually split up into two major parts. We have the mortal lands, and then we have all the fairy realms. And the fairy realms are actually split up further into 7 different courts. There is day, dawn, and night courts, and then there are winter, spring, summer, and autumn courts. The humans and the fairies in this universe are very hostile towards each other. There are a lot of rules and regulations. There is a giant wall that splits the two separate parts of Prythian. Our main character is Feyre, and she is a human who basically is the head of her household. Her father is very ill. He can't really walk around. So she is the one who is the protector of her family, and she goes out and hunts. And one night she's out hunting and she actually kills a wolf. Later on, she finds out that this wolf was actually a fairy who had shapeshifted into a wolf. So then, because she committed a crime and killed a fairy, she has to trade a life for a life. So then she goes to the Spring Fairy Court and ends up being a captive there. So yeah, that's basically the premise and how this whole series starts. I can't really talk about the second or third books right now because that would be spoilers, but I will talk about my feelings for each book right now so you guys at least know how I felt. This first book was hands down my least favorite of this series. It doesn't do a very good job of introducing the world. I feel like when I read a fantasy, I really want to feel as though I'm immersed in it and I really get to know the grit and what makes this world and what makes the characters, and I feel like that was just so lacking in this book. And I really liked the plot. The plot and what actually ends up happening, especially towards the end of this novel, are what really made this a 3-star book for me. Otherwise, I feel like it probably would have been a 2-star. And the characters, they're very shallow in this book, and honestly, I think it was the plot and the fact that we were left on a cliffhanger that made me want to read the second book and continue on with the series, which I'm glad I did. It's just that this first book was definitely a train wreck, in my opinion. It was a struggle. I had to struggle through it. Now, this second book, A Court of Mist and Fury, let's just talk about a comeback in the series, okay? This one is my favorite. I think what changed and what really did this book for me was the amount of character development and how much we get to see between the relationships of all of the fairies and the fairy courts and their government, and being able to see how all that works. Just the way that you get so surprised by the characters and you feel like you're on someone else's side, but then something switches up and you realize, oh heck, I don't like you anymore. And just the drama in this book is pure gold. Also, side note, before I go on with the third book, I just wanted to bring this up for those of you who want to read this series. There is a lot of X-rated scenes in here. I feel like I had to skip a lot. The first book is pretty bad. This book has a whole entire chapter, and then the third book is not as bad as this book, but there are smaller scenes like throughout the third book. So I'm just gonna warn you right now, I would definitely not recommend this series for people who are under 18 just because of all the sexual references. Like I said before, I had to skip around. If I read this, if I was younger, I definitely probably would have like freaked my crap and like thrown this series away. But the fact that my grandma gave it to me, I can't just throw them away, you know? However, with that being said, I do want to say that just because those scenes are in here, and if you do get uncomfortable with them, I get uncomfortable with them too, and I don't think that those scenes took anything away from the plot or my enjoyment of the story. Aside from the romance, there was a ton going on, so I really appreciated that. I don't like it when the romance is like the main thing. This is why I don't read romance books, you guys. This is exactly why. A Court of Wings and Ruin, the last book of the series thus far. This book overall was not my favorite because, as I said, the second book was, but this book definitely still kept up with the pace that the second book set and with the character development. There is a huge war that is fought at the end, and being able to see the governments have to work together in order to establish the lines and establish like the enemies and who all is who, it was a bit confusing, but it's not super bad. Like, I still enjoyed it, and it was really, really fascinating seeing how Sarah J. Maas developed all of that. I also very much enjoyed how Feyre's sisters come into play in this. It really begins to tie all of the family knots that, like, were kind of left loose in the first book because you get all of this family life and then you never really touch that in the second book. And then in this book, it brings them all back. So I very much enjoyed that. Something that I was disappointed in, that I didn't think I would ever be disappointed in ever, was the lack of deaths in this book, because we do enter a war and only a couple people die, and like, I get it. I just was frustrated because I feel like Sarah J. Maas could have gotten away with more loss and with more emotion in the book, because I feel like when I read a war scene, I want to be emotionally invested. I feel like that wasn't what happened in this war scene. It was really weird. It was a moment. It was definitely a moment. There are a couple points in the scene that are pretty gory and like actually give you action, but for the most part, the battle scene was just kind of like, you know, swords. More swords. Yes, overall, I would say it was a pretty dang good way to end this series. Okay, now I'm moving on to the spoilery part. So you know what? Just be prepared. I warned you. I just want to talk about Tamlin, first of all, in this first book, because I loved Tamlin, but the thing is, I knew something was off with him. I knew something was wrong. I knew that something was going to happen and that he wasn't as perfect as we thought he was. And what do you know? The second book came around and I was like, ha, got him. Except you didn't get him, because I already knew. Sarah J. Maas, I picked up on your little pieces that you were leaving. Yeah. I think my favorite part about this second book was how you really didn't know, at least I didn't really know, how it would end, because I knew that she loved Rhys, but then she kept acting really weird and sketchy and like about Tamlin. And then when Tamlin stole her away again, I was just kind of like, boy, back off. And the ending of this, the ending of the second book, I was screaming. I was so mad. And then this third book came around and then I realized, but wait, there's more. I also want to talk about specifically, I picked this book up impulsively because it's my favorite. Yikes. I just want to talk about Rhys's death in this book, because my heart was wrenched out when he died. And honestly, it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, your heart hurts and you feel like you're dying on the inside and you're just crying your eyes out. But like, it's one of those deaths where it's like, okay, I get it. I understand why this happened. There's a lot behind it. I get it. But then they freaking raised Rhys up from the dead. And like, I love Rhys, so I don't mind. I'm not complaining. But at the same time, I kind of am complaining, because I'm like, you can't just do us dirty like that and then reverse it and be like, ha, psych, he came alive the same way that his love interest came alive. Like, I don't know. It was upsetting because his death would have been a satisfying ending until Feyre said the line where it's like, I feel like I can't live without him. And I realized, okay, girl, hold on. if you can't live without him, what are you doing? You each should be your own separate person, and then together you can take on the world, okay? But no, that's not what happens in here. She feels like she can't be separated, and then they put the bond on each other where it's like if one of them dies, the other dies, and I'm just like, boy, what is happening? So I don't know, I'm not necessarily saying that I wish Reese died, because I do really, really love his character, and I think he brings a lot to the plot. And he's so, he's just gorgeous, okay? But all I'm saying is that when authors just do the flipperoosies, like, you can do the flipperoosies with a minor character, but with one of my favorite babes, you cannot do that, okay? Listen, please, please. Ugh. That concludes all of my feelings and how I feel about the series overall, because honestly, I can't exactly give you a specific word for these books. Like, usually I can say, oh, I really enjoyed the series. Like, I did. Ow, that dug into my collarbone. Okay. I don't read a lot about fairies, so I thought that was super interesting to just be immersed in a new kind of fantasy that I'm not really familiar with. I would probably give these 3 books altogether a solid 4 stars, because they did it. They really did it. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I love you all. Please be safe, make good choices, and I will see you next time. Woohoo!